The music news for the streets, the music news for your beats, the news for the music stuff that you gonna need. We gon' talk about plugins, we gon' talk about gear. If it's news on this music, we gon' talk about it here. Let's go.
What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your guy, Something, hit the keys. And in today's video, I want to talk about how you can throw your first live show. I know a lot of you guys follow the channel and you know that I do plugin reviews and gear reviews and stuff like that. But what many of you guys may not know is that I performed at, hosted, DJ at over 200 different shows in my life. And I've never really talked about how you can throw a show on the channel. So I figured I might as well go ahead and put together that content. So the first thing that I would recommend for you to do if it was your first show is to kind of figure out what kind of venue it is that you want to perform at, whether it's going to be a bar or a club or a live music venue, or maybe a park or a party or house, wherever it is that it's going to be. You kind of need to figure out where it is that you're going to throw the party so you can make your plan of attack from there. The second thing that I would recommend doing if it was my first show is that I would get together all the acts and I would kind of book the show and kind of set up different dates with them before I went to the venue. And the reason I'm saying that is because I would focus on getting acts that I knew could bring people or bring an audience. One thing about your first show is that the first show that you do, you're typically going to have a lot of people show up. That's going to be one of your most popular shows that you have, because people are going to be interested to see what you're doing. They're going to want to see you, they're going to want to rock with the show and all that other stuff. So I would probably branch out to all the other artists that I knew that have some kind of following, or maybe artists that have already done shows that can bring people there as well. The reason why this is important is because depending on where you're going to throw the show, you might want to bring that information to the bar. So that's going to bring the next thing that I would focus on is where you're going to throw the event at. I know I started off with that first, but it gets a little more important after you pick out your lineup, because depending on where you're going to have your show at, you might need to bring some information to the owner of the location. So like if you're going to have it at a bar, but you've never thrown a show before, you might want to bring like the following of all the people who are going to perform so that you can convince this bar owner to let you use their bar. You might want to do the same with the music venue. You might want to do the same with the club. You might have to show them something before they allow you to get in the door and utilize their facilities to throw your show. So I know in different states and different cities and different counties, there's different rules, laws, regulations. There's different things that people do. So at some venues, you might need liquor licenses. You might need all these other things. What I would recommend is honestly going to a bar, a club, or a live music venue first, because at those places, there's already going to be a liquor license. They're probably already going to serve food. They're probably already going to have security. There's probably already going to be somebody at the door. So there's going to be all those things in place for you already. If you are underage, you can also go to an underage club or bar and reach out to them and see if it's something that they want to do. I know a lot of those places, they're packed on Friday or Saturday, but if it's your first show, you might want to set something up for Thursday, or see if they have a date later on in the month where they don't have some kind of event going on, whether it's a Friday or Saturday, because I am going to recommend for your first show that you do try to book that on a Friday or a Saturday. So another reason why I recommend a bar or a club versus maybe a live music venue or a community center or something like that is because at a venue or at a community center, you might have to rent out the space. Typically with a bar or a club, you're not going to have to rent out the space. And so that's nice because they're just interested in filling up every single night. So what you can do is things like you need to make sure that you negotiate the bar. So you need to make sure that you're negotiating that you're going to get between 15 to 25% of the bar, so that you can make profits, because you're going to be bringing people into this venue. So they don't just get to make all the money. They need to share that with you. They need to revenue share with you. And you also need to make sure that you get the whole door. So you should be negotiating for the door. So whatever it is that you're going to charge, whether it's 5, 10, I probably wouldn't charge $20 for my first show, but whether it's 5, 10 bucks, you want to get all that money because you want to be able to pay all the people who are going to be involved in on the show as well. Things that you should probably bring with you on top of the following of the people who are going to be in the show is music. So you should bring different pieces of music from different artists that are going to be in the show, so that the bar owner, the club owner, the venue owner, whatever the owner is or wherever it is that you're going to be at can hear your music, so you can kind of try to impress them with that. When you're at the bar or the club and you're setting up the show, you need to find out if they do have a doorman, because that's pretty important, because if they don't have a doorman, then you're going to have to provide a doorman. The doorman's going to be somebody who's going to be checking IDs, and there's somebody that's going to be collecting the money, which obviously is very important. Even if they do provide a doorman, I always recommend having somebody there with the doorman, so you can just follow up and make sure that you get all the money that you've earned, because you don't want to let some doorman you don't know get the money that you know you've earned. And another thing that I always tried to work out with different bar owners was to see if we could have some kind of drink special, because you'll be able to put that on the flyer. You'll be able to advertise that as well. And as you get into building more relationships, you might get to do stuff where if you throw a Thursday show, it might be ladies' night. So now you can get all the ladies in for free, but they still have to pay for their drinks or half off drinks or stuff like that. But little things like that, little promotions like that also will help with your show, because it's going to bring in a crowd that might not have came to just the show. So after you get the venue locked in, or during the process of getting the venue locked in, you need to figure out if they have sound. So you need to figure out if they have a sound guy, if they have a board, if they have speakers, if they have microphones, if they have lighting, if they have all that stuff. Because if they don't, then you're going to have to provide it. So even though you may not own all this equipment, there's a lot of places that do rent out this equipment. The equipment that you are going to need is you're going to need PA speakers, you're going to need an amplifier, you're going to need a mixer, you're going to need a microphone, and lights are kind of optional, but you might want to get lights as well. What I did for the first show that I did, that was a solo show when I broke away from my band, was I didn't have sound at the venue. So I ended up going online, and I went into marketplace groups, and I went on to eBay, and I went everywhere I could, and I just got some budget speakers. So I got some budget PA speakers. One of my buddies had an amplifier that he wasn't using anymore, and he basically traded me that for a broken Xbox. I got microphones. I got everything that I needed to just throw a bare minimum show, but the sound was good enough. And then what that ended up allowing me to do was, since I went that way instead of renting the equipment, then I had equipment that I could throw shows with in the future. I had equipment that I could DJ with in the future, or just do whatever it is that I wanted to do. Now, granted, it wasn't cheap, but it was kind of cheap because I went and got all budget stuff. I didn't get top of the line stuff. I just figured it would be better for me to spend $300 to buy my own stuff than to spend $150 or $200 to rent it. So that's a route that you need to think of as well. I know a lot of times we think when we go into these bars that because you hear music playing from the jukebox that they have speakers, but something that should be noted is most of the time that they don't own those speakers. So all the speakers you're hearing music from the jukebox from, you can't use those speakers for shows because they don't own them. They just rent them. And so if the speakers blow from a show, it will void the warranty for the bar or the location. And basically what I'm trying to get at is no bar is going to let you use those speakers. So another thing I want to add is make sure you find out what kind of mics that they have, because most venues that do have live shows, they don't have wireless mics. I always recommend wireless mics because with a wireless mic, you can do more with working the crowd. You never have to worry about the cord getting in your way. You never have to worry about crossing chords if you have multiple people performing at the same time. If the venue does have sound, they might be able to outsource those mics for you. If not, you can go somewhere and rent the mics. It's typically like $40 or so to rent some mics. So that would be an investment that I would personally make. But it's your first show, so you don't have the money. You know what I'm saying? Do with what you can. Things that you're definitely going to need for this show is going to be a doorman. So somebody to be at the door with the doorman if there is one. You're going to need a DJ. A DJ is very important, one of the most slept on things on a live show. A DJ is going to control the pace of the show for you. A DJ is going to keep the crowd hyped when you have breaks in the show. A DJ is also going to be there to play the other people's music. So you really do need a DJ. Like I said, I've DJed before a lot in the past. When I first started doing live shows, I thought I could be the DJ, the host. I thought I could be everything. But since I never DJ before, I didn't know what music was going to get the crowd going. So just because you like music and you like songs doesn't mean that everybody else is going to like that same music. So like if you're at a hip hop show, just because you're at a hip hop show doesn't mean people want to hear Nas, Jay-Z, Drake, or whatever it is. They want to hear whatever the hottest music is, and they want to hear it in different combinations and so on and so forth. And DJs do that for a living, or DJs practice that, and that's their skill. So I would definitely recommend in a DJ. You're going to need a host. So you're definitely going to need somebody to host the show. A host is going to basically keep the crowd engaged. They're going to be the ones that's going to make sure the acts are coming to stage on time. They're going to be walking around, making sure people know when their show time is. They're just going to be doing all the engaging. They're going to be making people laugh. They're going to be making people go. So they're very important. What else is very important is going to be a sound guy. So if you are the one throwing the party, maybe you could use the DJ. You can lean on him as the sound guy, but a lot of times that's not going to work because if the DJ is behind the speakers and on the stage, they're not going to be a very good sound guy. So I wouldn't put them in front of the board. I would obviously put the board in front of the speakers so that you can make all the adjustments that you need to make to the sound as you're hearing it, like the rest of the crowd is hearing it. Another thing that you're going to need is a merch table. You want to have a place where people can sell their CDs, they can sell their shirts, they can sell whatever it is that they want to sell. You can have one person designated to be in charge of the merch table. People can count their merch and then they can go to the person and collect at the end. Or each person can have somebody that they know work the merch table. You're also going to need a light person. So the light person can be the sound guy, so on and so forth, if you do have lights. And then what's going to be very important to you in future shows, maybe not so much at the first show, is a promoter. A promoter is a very essential part of shows, whether you realize it or not. A promoter is going to bring in all kinds of different people that would have never seen your show, never seen your flyers, never seen any of that stuff if it wasn't for the promoter. One thing that I'm very grateful for was that I had a really good promoter when I was throwing shows. And so like we would throw these weekend shows, we'd have 300-400 people and the promoter would bring over half the people. And so then the acts would bring people, so on and so forth. But having that promoter is going to be a way for you to get more revenue, because a lot of times people don't want to pay somebody to do this or pay somebody to do that. But the promoter is literally bringing customers into your business in order for you to make more money, because all those people that the promoter bring in are going to pay the money at the door and then they're going to spend money at the bar. And remember, you want to negotiate that 15 to 25% at the bar, and you also want to keep everything from the door, and that's just more money that you can pay yourself. You can pay the artists. That'll allow you to have DJs. That'll allow you to have a host. The more people that show up is the more hands that can help you with the show. So in planning the show, you're going to want to make the show 3 weeks to a month out. The reason being is you want to have enough time to do promo for the show. So you want to make sure that you make flyers. Doesn't have to be paper flyers, but definitely want to make flyers for the internet so that you can share them. You want to share it everywhere that you can. Don't worry about being a pest, because if you don't promote your show, nobody's going to promote your show. Don't tag all your friends and stuff in that, but you can make events in different groups and you can add people to events. You can do all that stuff. It's going to help. Something else that you definitely want to do is you want to set up the show schedule in advance, like right away. So like, let's say your show starts at 9, then you want the doors to open at 8. You want everybody to show up there between 7:30 and 8 to do a sound check, maybe between 7 and 8 to do the sound check. You need to make sure all the artists know that it is mandatory to be there to do the sound check, because what's very important to the show is the sound quality of the show. You don't want to have a show where you didn't get to do a sound check with somebody and they rap super low and you can't hear them, or they scream into the mic and it's like a pain in the butt in order to do a sound check while they're in the middle of performing. So they need to show up and they need to be a part of the show and they need to stay till the end of the show. You also need to give them their times. So like if the show starts at 9, the first artist, if they're going to start at 9 o'clock, they need to know they need to be there and they need their start at 9. And then the sets are going to probably be 15 to 20 minutes for your first show. So I would space out a little bit of time. So the first act is going to go on at 9. If it's a 20-minute set, then the next act goes on at 9:25. Let the DJ pump it up and play a song or two in between the sets so that he can get the crowd hyped up in between each set. But the artists need to know that they need to be on time for their set. One thing that we used to do is if the artist didn't show up on time, they didn't get to perform. What's also very important is that with your first show, that you get your show started on time. Because if you don't get your first show started on time, and then your second show's not started on time, and then your third show's not started on time, people are never going to show up on time for your show. So people are going to show up when they want to show up for your show, or people are going to show up when they think the show's going to start, which is going to force you to start every show later than you want to start the show. So instead of starting these shows at 9 o'clock, now these shows have to start at 10 because people aren't there to watch the performers. And so then you can't set up schedules when people are supposed to perform, or that's when you're going to get it to where artists don't want to show up on time because they're like, man, I don't want to perform at that 9 o'clock slot because nobody's going to be there till 10. So then they're going to think that it's okay for them to show up late because nobody's there. So what you need to do is you need to be stern. You need to make sure your show starts on time, and you need to make sure the artists know that if they're not on time, they're not going to perform, and you need to follow through on that. Because if you let the artist take over the show, then basically, like they say, you got the criminals running the jail. You got the monkeys running the zoo. So you don't want that to happen. And with that, another thing that I would have the artists do is I would have the artists send their show set to the DJ a few days in advance, maybe 3-4 days in advance. So the DJ could get familiar with their sets and he can build his set around their sets. If you're the artist on this though, one thing that I recommend that I used to do is that I used to put my whole set together. I know a lot of artists, they'll just have, first song, second song, third song, fourth song, and then they'll send out the 5 or 6 songs that they're going to perform for the night. What I used to do was I would put together the whole 15 or 20-minute set in just one wave. And then I would build all the breaks in. I would build any effects or anything that I needed in or whatever I needed into my set. I would build it all in there so that the DJ doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. Another pro tip for all you performers is that you need to practice your set for like at least an hour a day for 2 weeks before your show. The reason why this is so important is because if you've never performed before or you've only performed a few times, everything's not second nature. So you don't want to be on stage looking goofy or looking like you're out of rhythm, or you don't want to forget the words to your song. I would definitely try to be somewhere where I could play the music as loud as possible, because when you get into the venue, you're going to be super loud. Your adrenaline's going to be going. You're going to be moving around. You're going to be dancing around. You're going to be working the crowd. You're going to be doing all this stuff that you couldn't do if you just had the volume at 10 and you were just practicing. So you need to really practice like it's full go mode, because all that energy is going to take over. All that adrenaline is going to take over. You're going to run out of breath. You're going to be tired in the middle of your set, and you're just going to, it's going to be a shock for you, especially the first time you perform. So if you perform every day for an hour, what I did was back to back to back to back. And if I could perform my whole set 4 times or 3 times in an hour back to back without getting tired, I was ready to go on show day. And again, I can't stress little things like hand movements, or like how you want to stress certain words, or how you want to make a movement during a certain word, or how you want to do a certain thing at a certain time in your set. If you've practiced it every day for weeks or months or whatever it is before your show, you're not going to mess up at your show because it's going to be second nature. It's just going to be what you're used to doing during your show or your set. And then you're going to start doing that same thing at every show, and it's going to be like clockwork. You're going to look like a professional. So then little things that you can do during the show too as well is you can walk around. You need to engage with the guests, with the people who are at the show. You need to ask them what they think of the show. You need to ask them what you guys can improve on for the show. You need to just ask them what they want to see at the next time they come out and things like that, because those things right there are going to improve your show, and it's going to make them feel valued and make them feel important in the show. And it's also going to give you some tips for the next show. When the show is all over, said and done, you need to make sure that you get the bar receipt from the owner. That is very important. The bar receipt is going to allow you to see how much money you should have made, and it's also a piece of your portfolio. So a lot of people don't realize this, but if you take your bar receipt from a successful show to the next bar, that's going to help you get your foot in the door there. So if you can be like, hey, You know what I'm saying? I could bring your bar in $5,000 or $10,000 or however much money, you know, from doing a show, then you're more likely to get the next bar owner to let you do a show. It's very, very important in the process. Just always keep your bar receipts, put them in a folder. Again, treat this like a business because this is your business and you never know where it's going to go. I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but I didn't. But basically, these tips are for anybody. Anybody can throw a show. You don't have to be an artist to throw a show. You don't have to be a producer. You don't have to be a DJ. You can be anything and throw a show. You know, as long as you book acts and you follow the right steps in order to throw a show, you could just want to be a promoter. And this is how you can get your foot in the door. So those are some steps that I got for you guys today on throwing some shows. Let me know below in the comments what questions that you guys have. I'll be more than happy to answer them. If I left anything out that you guys think's a good idea from throwing live shows, let me know. A lot of this basically is for hip hop shows, but with like, you know, all kinds of shows, basically you're going to want to follow this format. Whether other shows, yeah, you might need to do other things like mic up a bunch of drums or bring your amps and stuff for guitars and stuff like that. Yeah, you're going to need to do all that stuff too, but you still need to follow all these guidelines in order to set the show up and get the show going. So make sure if you guys do like this content though, you drop a whole elbow on that like button, hit subscribe and that notification bell so every time we bring you guys a new video, you can be the first to see. Appreciate you guys' time as always, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Some, hit the key.